The morning light filters through the curtains. It's soft, almost shy, touching the edges of the room. A gentle hum of birds fills the silence. Ellen sits by the window, a cup of tea resting in her hands. She's 62, calm, thoughtful, but her shoulders ache again. It's the same dull soreness that greets her every morning. Once she ignored it, thinking it was just age saying hello. But lately it feels heavier, like carrying invisible weight. She lifts her arm to sip her tea and winces just a little. A reminder that even quiet pain can speak loudly. She sighs, looking out at the morning sky, pale and wide. Her reflection in the glass smiles back, tired but kind. She remembers a time when her shoulders moved freely. When reaching up felt easy, natural, effortless. Those days seem far away, but not gone. She closes her eyes, breathes slowly, deeply. The air feels cool, steady, alive. Maybe it's time to listen to her body again. To move not with force but with care. To start small, slow, and gentle, one shoulder stretch at a time. Ellen used to wake up early, long before the neighborhood stirred. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, the whisper of morning. She liked that silence, the kind that held stories only she could hear. But lately, another sound joined her mornings, the quiet stiffness of her shoulders. A subtle creak when she reached for her mug, a small ache when she turned her head. It wasn't pain exactly, just a reminder that time leaves traces on the body. She had spent years caring for others, carrying groceries, lifting boxes, holding her grandkids. Each task added a drop of weight to her shoulders. Now, those drops had turned into a pool she couldn't quite drain. She smiled anyway, because that's what she always did. But deep inside, she missed the lightness she once felt. The ease of movement that came without thought, without effort. She thought about her younger days, teaching, writing, tending her garden. She could spend hours pruning roses, her arms strong, her posture proud. Now even combing her hair felt like slow work. The reflection in the mirror was the same woman, but her body whispered differently. "Slow down," it said. "Listen." So one morning, instead of ignoring the ache, Ellen sat still. She rested her hands on her thighs and breathed in deeply. The air filled her lungs, stretched her chest, and touched her shoulders. She noticed how her muscles tensed, how they resisted. She exhaled slowly, and they softened just a little. The stillness felt strange, almost intimate. For years she had moved through life without thinking about her body. Now it was asking her to pay attention. Her cat brushed against her leg, purring softly as if agreeing. Ellen smiled and whispered, "Maybe today we move slower." She turned on a small radio near the window. A low, soothing melody filled the room, wrapping her in calm. The world outside was beginning to wake, but she stayed in that moment. No rush, no plans, no expectation. Just the simple awareness of being here now. She rolled her shoulders gently, feeling the quiet resistance melt into motion. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a conversation. Her body responded, grateful, cautious, alive. She thought about all the years her shoulders carried things unspoken. Worries, chores, expectations, all resting just beneath the skin. Now, with every slow movement, she was letting go of pieces she no longer needed. The ache didn't vanish, but it softened, like fog lifting from water. She looked outside again, sunlight spilling over the leaves. It wasn't too late to start again. To move with kindness instead of pressure. To rebuild trust with her own body. Ellen took another breath and whispered to herself, "We begin here." And in that quiet, she realized something beautiful. The body doesn't ask for perfection. It only asks for patience. And when we listen, truly listen, healing begins, not with effort but with grace. That morning her shoulders felt lighter, not because they changed, but because she did. The next morning, Ellen woke up before the first light. The world outside was still asleep, quiet and dim. She sat at the edge of her bed, her hands resting on her knees. Her shoulders already felt heavy, but this time she didn't sigh. She had made a promise to herself, to start slow, to breathe, to feel. She closed her eyes, letting the darkness behind her lids settle. Her breath came uneven at first, short and cautious. Years of rushing made stillness feel unfamiliar. But she waited, letting the air find its own rhythm. Inhale, the chest expands, the ribs lift, the air fills. Exhale, the weight gently falls, the shoulders drop, the body softens. She repeated it again, slower, quieter, deeper. Her breath began to sound like the sea, steady and alive. She imagined each inhale carrying warmth to her sore joints. Each exhale sweeping out the tension that had settled like dust. The air moved through her body like a tide, patient and sure. Her fingers tingled, her spine lengthened, her chest opened a little wider. She hadn't realized how shallow her breathing had become over the years. How often she held her breath while concentrating, worrying, enduring. Now every breath felt like an act of release, a small rebellion against stiffness. Ellen smiled softly, the corners of her lips lifting without effort. She placed one hand over her heart, feeling it rise and fall beneath her palm. It reminded her that she was still here, still moving, still capable of change. With her next breath, she noticed her shoulders again. They lifted slightly with the inhale, lowered gently with the exhale. Such a simple motion, yet it carried the rhythm of renewal. The body knows how to heal, it just needs space and patience. She whispered to herself, breathe into the places that feel forgotten. And so she did. Her breath traveled through her body like light finding old corners. The tension loosened its grip, slowly, kindly. She could almost hear her muscles sighing in relief. She thought of how many mornings she had rushed past this moment. How many times she had ignored the quiet voice asking her to slow down. But today, that voice was all she wanted to hear. She kept breathing, each cycle slower than the last. In through the nose, out through the mouth, steady and calm. Her body began to sway gently with the rhythm, natural and unforced. The stillness didn't feel strange anymore, it felt sacred. Her shoulders no longer screamed for attention, they listened too. Breath and body, finally in conversation again. She opened her eyes slowly, light spilling through the curtains. The world was waking up, but she felt as if she had already begun. She stood, her movements soft, unhurried, guided by breath. Every inhale lifted her spirit, every exhale grounded her. For the first time in years, her morning didn't start with pain. It started with presence, quiet, patient, and deeply alive. The morning sun had fully arrived now, spilling warmth across the floor. Ellen stood near the window, her body awake but calm. She took one last deep breath, ready to move. Her shoulders had been waiting for this moment, slow, patient, deliberate. She lifted them gently toward her ears, holding them there for a heartbeat. The muscles tightened, then trembled slightly under the stretch. And then, with a long sigh, she let them drop. It felt like setting down a bag she'd been carrying too long. She rolled her shoulders backward, slow and wide, tracing circles in the air. Each circle was smooth at first, then softer, like waves learning their rhythm. The sound of movement was quiet but full, a whisper of fabric, a breath of relief. She closed her eyes, following the motion, counting softly in her head. 1 roll, 2, 3. Each one untying something small, something she hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just the joints that moved, it was her thoughts too. The stiffness of yesterday began to dissolve with every gentle rotation. Her breath joined the movement, rising and falling in time. Inhale as the shoulders lifted, exhale as they fell. The pattern felt ancient, natural, almost musical. Her body had been craving this slow dance for years. The more she moved, the more she understood. Tension doesn't just live in the muscles. It hides in memories, in habits, in the way we brace ourselves against life. She thought of all the times she sat through long meetings, tight and still, of carrying heavy bags, of leaning forward toward computer screens. Every small act had built a story in her shoulders. Now she was rewriting it, one circle at a time. The room grew brighter, sunlight warming her back. Her body responded, shoulders loosening like thawing ground. She began to roll them forward now, slowly, carefully. The motion felt different, deeper, more tender. A soft ache surfaced, not painful, just honest. She welcomed it, knowing that discomfort sometimes meant release. She whispered, "It's okay, we're learning again." The words weren't just for her body, they were for her soul too. Her cat watched from the chair, eyes half closed, tail flicking lazily. Ellen smiled, realizing how peaceful the room felt. No noise, no rush, just the quiet rhythm of breath and movement. She paused after a while, letting her arms hang by her sides. A gentle warmth pulsed through her shoulders, spreading down her arms. It wasn't fatigue, it was life returning. She stood taller without meaning to, her spine aligned, her neck free. The tension that once shaped her mornings was melting away. She touched her shoulder lightly and felt the softness beneath her fingers. No sharpness, no resistance, just calm. It wasn't magic, it was mindfulness made visible. She looked out the window again, light shimmering on the leaves. Maybe healing isn't about doing more, she thought. Maybe it's about slowing down enough to listen to what's already there. And as she rolled her shoulders one last time, the ache that once ruled her mornings became nothing more than a memory carried gently by the breeze. Ellen stood a little taller now, her breath steady, her body awake. The air felt gentle against her skin, soft with morning calm. She moved to the center of the room, her bare feet cool on the floor. It was time for the next stretch, slow and mindful. She lifted her right arm across her chest, her left hand guiding it gently. The motion was careful, deliberate, like folding a letter she didn't want to tear. The stretch tugged lightly at her shoulder blade, deep and quiet. She held it there, breathing in through her nose, out through her mouth. Her mind wandered to old memories, carrying boxes, holding children, waving goodbye. Each movement from the past had written a line of tension into her muscles. Now she was slowly reading those lines again, one breath at a time. Her eyes softened, her shoulders trembling just slightly. The ache wasn't pain, it was recognition. Her body remembering how far it had come. She exhaled, feeling her chest open wider. A warm pulse traveled down her arm, gentle as sunlight through leaves. She switched sides, her left arm now crossing her chest. The motion felt uneven, but she smiled at that imperfection. Healing never moves in straight lines. It curves, pauses, and begins again. She breathed into the stretch, her ribs expanding like wings. For the first time, she noticed how her body responded with trust. Each inhale invited her muscles to soften, each exhale let them release. There was no rush, no pressure, just patience woven into motion. Her fingers brushed against her arm, the skin warm, alive. She could almost feel her heartbeat beneath it, steady and real. In that quiet moment, Ellen realized something profound. Her body was not her enemy. It had carried her through storms and seasons, through grief and joy. It had never stopped trying to protect her, even when she ignored its whispers. Now she was learning to thank it, not with words but with care. The stretch deepened slightly as she breathed again. It felt like forgiveness, like understanding something she had long forgotten. She released the pose slowly, letting her arms fall to her sides. A tingling warmth lingered, spreading from shoulder to fingertips. She rolled her shoulders once more, small circles of gratitude. Outside, the wind brushed through the trees, soft and rhythmic. Ellen listened to it, matching her breath to its quiet sway. Her movements had become part of that sound, calm and flowing. She felt her strength return, not loud or sharp but grounded. This wasn't exercise, it was dialogue. A conversation between breath and body, between effort and ease. She looked down at her hands, strong yet tender, resting on her heart. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice almost a breath itself. And in that whisper she felt peace, not as something earned but remembered. Her shoulders loosened, her spirit quieted, and the morning stretched on with her. Ellen stood by the open window, the air cool against her face. The garden outside shimmered under soft sunlight. She lifted her gaze upward, letting her body follow. It was time for her favorite part, the slow overhead reach. She inhaled deeply, the air expanding her chest, her ribs lifting gently. Her arms rose slowly, her fingers tracing invisible paths toward the sky. The motion was steady, graceful, like a slow tide moving in. Her shoulders stretched, her spine lengthened, her breath deepened. At the top she paused, her palms open, her body still. The quiet felt sacred, like holding light in her hands. She exhaled slowly, lowering her arms back down, soft as falling leaves. The movement carried peace, not effort. She repeated it again. Inhale, reach, hold, exhale, release. Each round felt smoother, more connected, more alive. Her joints no longer resisted. They flowed like water finding its way home. The warmth spread across her shoulders, down her arms, through her fingertips. She could feel the rhythm between breath and motion, between body and mind. It wasn't about stretching further, it was about feeling deeper. She lifted her arms once more, slower this time, savoring the motion. Her eyes followed her hands as they rose above her head. She felt tall, open, present, like a tree standing in quiet strength. The air moved around her, soft and patient. Her breath steadied, her heart calm and rhythmic. For years she had chased energy and fast movements, quick fixes, loud routines. But here in stillness she found something stronger. A steady, grounded kind of power. She lowered her arms again, her hands brushing softly against her sides. Her fingers tingled, alive with circulation and warmth. The ache that once lingered in her shoulders now felt distant, dissolved. Not gone completely, but changed, softened, understood. She smiled to herself, realizing the truth her body had been teaching. Relief doesn't come from force. It comes from kindness repeated in small, quiet ways. She took one last deep breath, lifting her arms overhead again. This time she held them there, steady and calm. The world seemed to pause with her. The sound of wind, the scent of morning, the hum of her heartbeat. It all moved together, one rhythm, one silence. Then she exhaled, lowering her arms with grace, letting the calm settle. Her shoulders felt light, free, as if they had learned how to breathe too. Ellen stood still for a moment, her hands resting on her heart. She thought of all the mornings ahead, all the gentle movements to come. No rush, no strain, just care, just breath, just time. Outside, a bird called softly, and she smiled. Healing had arrived, not as a grand event, but as a quiet unfolding. And in that slow, tender reach toward the sky, she felt whole again. Ellen stayed still for a long while, her hands resting on her lap. The room was quiet except for the faint rustle of leaves outside. Her breath came slowly now, steady and sure, like the rhythm of the earth. She felt warmth lingering in her shoulders, not heat but peace. It was as if her body had finally exhaled after years of holding on. She closed her eyes, letting the silence wrap around her like soft fabric. In the quiet she could hear her own heartbeat, gentle and alive. Each beat reminded her that she was here, present, whole. Her shoulders no longer felt like burdens, they felt like wings. Not to fly away, but to open, to hold, to embrace. She smiled, small and real, the kind that begins inside the chest. This was more than stretching, it was remembering. Remembering to slow down, to listen, to exist without rushing. She thought of all the mornings she had filled with noise and worry. All the time she had moved through life without noticing her own breath. Now even stillness felt like motion, gentle and alive. Her body had found its own rhythm again, simple and kind. She whispered to herself, "I'm learning to be gentle." And it wasn't just a thought, it was a promise. Outside, a thin ray of sunlight touched her shoulder. The warmth spread slowly, reminding her that every morning brings another chance. She opened her eyes, the world brighter than before. The plants by the window shimmered in the soft glow. Her tea had gone cold, but she didn't mind. It had waited for her, just like her body had. She reached for it, this time without hesitation. The motion felt easy, natural, graceful. No sharp ache, no stiffness, just movement in harmony. She took a sip, tasting the calm she had created. It wasn't in the tea, it was in her. Her breath flowed freely, and her shoulders felt light as air. She thought about how healing doesn't ask for effort, only attention. How small actions, one breath, one stretch, can rewrite the way we live. The ache that once felt endless was now a story she could close gently. She looked outside, where the morning had become golden. The sky stretched wide, endless, full of quiet promises. She whispered again, "Thank you, not to anyone but to everything." To the breath that stayed, the body that tried, the patience that grew. Her shoulders lifted slightly, then fell, a simple rhythm of peace. This was her still moment, her quiet return to balance. She knew the soreness might come back some days. But she also knew how to meet it now, softly, slowly, kindly. Every movement from now on would carry this awareness. The awareness that healing isn't a finish line. It's a rhythm, a breath, a way of living. Ellen stood by the window once more, her reflection clear and calm. The woman looking back at her wasn't different, just lighter. She exhaled one last time, long and steady. And in that breath she felt it, release, renewal, and the simple beauty of being. The day had fully awakened, soft light filling every corner of the room. Ellen stood quietly, her body calm, her mind clear. Her shoulders no longer whispered with pain, they breathed with ease. She felt a gentle strength inside her, something quiet but steady. The air smelled of morning and small beginnings. She reached her arms up once more, slow and steady, feeling space open within her. This time the motion felt like gratitude, not effort. She lowered her arms, smiling, her breath long and free. The world outside moved softly, birds calling, leaves stirring, life unfolding. She thought about how much can change when we simply slow down. Not everything needs to be fixed, some things just need to be felt. The ache, the breath, the stillness, all part of the same story. She whispered, "Thank you," to her body, her morning, her moment. Then she turned toward the window, letting the light touch her face. It was a new day, not louder, not busier, just brighter in its own quiet way. Ellen took one last deep breath and began her day, shoulders light, heart open.